maintain these lines that are firm, trustworthy, secure, true, keeping us on the right path, and yet incorporating and moving. There's an ebb and flow to that. How do we do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the good news is Orthodoxy is really expansive. So there's all sorts of room within Orthodoxy for different cultural expressions of what that might look like and how that might be experienced or felt. And in fact, I think the encounter with other cultures and Christians in other cultures can lead us to a place where we recognize what's essential versus what's not, because you recognize this person believes the same things about Jesus, worships the same Jesus, is seeking to follow Jesus, and yet their life looks different culturally than mine does, and it helps you understand. And they may have different views on any number of things. I mean, I did a post recently of why in certain places, like in Africa, for example, in a different contexts, getting a tattoo is seen as more egregious a sin than adultery. And the reason is because of the connection in that particular culture to being marked on the body with like particular ancient African practices and whatnot. And so it has this a complete different connotation, whereas adultery could be something to be forgiven and moved on. Like the mark is something that is, damaging long-term and whatnot.
Yeah, permanent.
And I'm not saying I'm not saying tattoos are sinful or that tattoos are worse than adultery. I'm simply saying, when you ask, when it's one of those things that in encountering the church in other parts of the world, you suddenly recognize the way that they're thinking about and living out the faith may look different in particular circumstances, but that's because Orthodoxy is not an extraordinarily confining, constraining, only one culture kind of a thing. I mean, it's one of the main differences, I think, between Islam and Christianity here. One of the reasons why Christianity has become it's undeniable, the most diverse movement ever to exist on the planet when it comes to the amount of cultural expressions and different cultures that it has pervaded and influenced, and people from all over the world in different places and languages and whatnot. One of the reasons why that's the case is because Christianity is for all the world, and the Orthodoxy that we adhere to, that we recognize as that bedrock of faith, it's so expansive when it comes to the expressions. So I don't think it's that our Orthodoxy is adapting to those realities. I think our Orthodoxy is better clarified and understood as to what's essential versus what's not when we come into contact with believers in other parts of the world.